Zara Okoye could practically taste the salt in the breeze as she stood on the deck of the Marine Guardian, a flagship vessel of her late parents' billion-dollar empire. The sun was setting, painting the Lagos sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. The Nigerian coast stretched out in the distance, a bustling cityscape thriving with life, ambition, and stories. Her stories, most of them shaped by her parents' legacy. At 27, Zara was already making international headlines as the new face of Okoye Marine Innovations, a conglomerate dedicated to ocean cleanup, coral reef protection, and advanced maritime engineering. She had inherited everything after her parents' tragic accident 3 years prior. Determined to continue their work, Zara threw herself into the cause. Her mother had always said, "Water holds the secret to life, my darling. Protect it, and you protect humanity's future." Those words stayed with Zara. She believed in building scholarships for marine biology students from underprivileged backgrounds, funding ocean research, and launching high-tech solutions to combat plastic waste. In the fluorescent-lit interior of the ship's lounge, her best friend and lawyer, Nia Bello, was poring over stacks of documents. Nia was a petite woman with fierce intelligence. Her hair, cut into a stylish bob, framed a pair of discerning eyes that caught every detail. She had grown up with Zara and knew precisely how important the oceanic cause was to her. "You should be proud, Zara," Nia said, pointing to an article on her tablet. "The new recycling initiative is going to shift how we handle plastic waste across West Africa." Zara nodded but remained silent. Her gaze drifted to the waves. A part of her felt restless, as though something was missing, even in her carefully curated life. She had her mission, her team, her wealth, and the boundless ocean. Yet, there was this lingering loneliness every time she returned to an empty mansion. "That look again," Nia teased gently, setting down the tablet. "You need to get out, meet people beyond business conferences." Zara laughed. "You're probably right. But you know how these things go. Men see me as the heiress first and the woman second. I don't have time for gold diggers." "Give the world a chance," Nia replied. "Don't lock yourself away because of your parents' tragedy. They'd want you to be happy." Zara's heart squeezed. Memories of her parents soared back, her father teaching her how to steer a boat along the Gulf of Guinea, her mother's constant reminders to wear a life jacket. She missed them deeply. Perhaps Nia was right. Life couldn't just be about boardrooms and boardwalks. As the Marine Guardian docked, Zara prepared to meet a group of scholarship recipients. It was a small but important ceremony. She offered each student a chance at an Ivy League education or top-notch marine institutes around the globe. "I plan to extend these opportunities," she announced to the crowd. "Because together, we can do more than just study the ocean, we can save it." The applause resounded across the pier. Cameras flashed. Amid the celebration, Zara felt the warmth of purpose. But as she looked out at the city lights, she couldn't help but sense the wind of change blowing her way. Little did she know, in just a few days, she would meet the man who would alter her life forever, and not in the way she had ever imagined. The next evening, Zara arrived at a high-profile environmental gala in Lagos, hosted in a sleek, modern auditorium overlooking the Atlantic. She stepped out of her chauffeured car, wearing a dazzling emerald gown that sparkled under the chandeliers. Cameras flashed, capturing the confidence in her stride and the generosity in her smile. Inside, guests mingled among art installations representing various ocean habitats, colorful coral reefs, pristine lagoons, and shimmering wave sculptures. Halfway through the night, while discussing a newly revealed coral restoration technology with a group of investors, Zara spotted a man near the buffet table. He wore a crisp white linen suit that contrasted with his caramel-toned skin. He looked out of place among the darker tuxedos and flamboyant gala dresses. And yet, he carried himself with a suave nonchalance, as if this environment was no more intimidating than a private lounge. Nia nudged her. "He's looking at you," she whispered. "I noticed," Zara admitted, taking a sip of champagne. It was unusual for anyone to linger at the edges of such events without a name tag or some flashy introduction. She watched as he took a glass of wine and meandered through the crowd, greeting a few people. When their eyes finally met, Zara felt a jolt. Was it curiosity, intrigue, or simply that he was so different from the usual crowd? Whatever it was, she found herself walking toward him. She had been taught to be direct, a trait that served her well in business. "You seem to be enjoying yourself," she said, stopping a short distance away. "Do you share our passion for marine conservation, or are you just here for the free drinks?" He chuckled, a smooth, resonant sound. "A bit of both, actually," he replied, tipping his glass. "Julian Blake. And yes, I do have a stake in environmental solutions, though perhaps on a smaller scale than your empire. I haven't had the pleasure of an official introduction to Ms. Okoye herself." Zara extended her hand. "Zara Okoye. But you knew that already." "I've heard much about you," Julian said, lips curving into a charming smile. "You've made quite an impact in marine engineering circles. The name Okoye is synonymous with innovation." Zara tried to keep her composure, though she found herself studying him closely. "I appreciate your words. What about you? I don't recall seeing your name in any major philanthropic circles." "Let's just say I like to fly under the radar," he replied, taking a casual sip of wine. "I grew up in South Africa. Moved around quite a bit after that. I focus on discrete investments, tech startups, ecological ventures. I find it more fulfilling to remain behind the scenes." In that moment, the gala organizer invited Zara on stage to accept an award for her leadership in marine conservation. She turned back to Julian. "I have to go receive an honor. Care to accompany me for the walk?" His eyes sparkled. "I'd be honored." He strolled alongside her, radiating cool confidence as they crossed the hall. Zara could feel the curious gazes from her colleagues. As the host presented her with the plaque, cameras flashed, capturing the image of Zara Okoye standing proudly beside this mysterious man in white linen. Her acceptance speech was concise and impactful. "I dedicate this award to my late parents, whose vision for a cleaner ocean knew no borders. And also to every young mind that believes in a greener future. May you never lose hope." The crowd applauded warmly, and as Zara stepped away from the spotlight, she felt an unusual flutter in her stomach. Julian was waiting in the wings, a gentle smile on his face. "That was beautiful," he said. "There's a sincerity in your voice. It's rare in these circles." Zara noticed Nia glancing at them from afar, brows slightly furrowed. Nia always seemed to worry about newcomers. But for once, Zara was too caught up in the moment to care. She found herself genuinely intrigued by Julian's composure, by that mixture of charm and restraint. Before the evening ended, Julian asked for her number. She hesitated, recalling her vow to be cautious. But something about him, his easy confidence, his refusal to boast, drew her in. "Call my office," she teased, half expecting him to balk at the formal route. But he surprised her. "Let me guess, your assistant won't put me through unless I have the secret code?" He smirked. Zara took a pen from her clutch and scribbled her private number on a napkin. "Don't lose it," she said with a playful arch of her brow. "I'm not in the habit of giving out second chances." Zara could hardly believe how quickly their relationship progressed. Just 2 weeks after the gala, she found herself sitting across from Julian in an intimate rooftop restaurant in Victoria Island. The city lights shimmered around them, and a gentle ocean breeze tickled their tablecloth. "I've never met someone so devoted to philanthropic work," Julian said, leaning forward. "It's inspiring, really. Most wealthy people I've encountered tend to focus on personal gain." "That's not how my parents raised me," Zara replied, twirling pasta on her fork. "They taught me that wealth is a tool, a means to uplift communities, protect the environment, and innovate solutions." He nodded, taking her hand gently. "You're extraordinary, Zara." His words touched her heart, and she felt a warmth she had long denied herself. Yet a corner of her mind remained cautious. She knew next to nothing about Julian's background, aside from the little he shared. But each time she asked, his answers were consistent and calm. He had grown up in Johannesburg, traveled extensively, and had a knack for identifying good business opportunities, though he rarely provided specifics. Still, Zara found herself captivated. She felt safe in his presence, something she hadn't experienced in a long time. They shared romantic dinners, long walks along private beaches, and late-night conversations about their visions for the future. Over time, She introduced him to Mama Tola, her beloved childhood nanny who still helped around the mansion. Mama Tola was well into her 60s, her hair speckled with gray, but her protective instincts for Zara remained sharp. "He seems nice, my child," Mama Tola observed one morning in the grand kitchen, where she was preparing jollof rice. "But a man can seem like an angel and hide the heart of a trickster." Zara smiled, placing a reassuring hand on Mama Tola's shoulder. "I appreciate your concern. Truly. I'm being careful." 3 months into their whirlwind courtship, Julian accompanied Zara to a charity gala in Ghana. He charmed everyone, from high-profile politicians to teenage volunteers. Even Nia was less guarded after speaking with him, though she still insisted on doing a thorough background check. As the months passed, rumors of their relationship spread through African tabloids and business magazines. Some labeled Julian Blake as the new Mr. Okoye, before a formal proposal even occurred. Others questioned his hidden motivations, but Zara dismissed the gossip as typical sensationalism. He had proven himself to be supportive, kind, and genuinely interested in her philanthropic ambitions. When, on a balmy evening, Julian dropped to one knee at the foot of a historical lighthouse off the coast of Senegal, offering her a diamond ring that seemed to catch moonlight in its facets, Zara's heart pounded. She remembered her mother's ring, inherited from her grandmother, but had left it in a safe for fear of losing it during her travels. Now, she wore Julian's ring as the promise of a new future. "Yes," she answered, tears in her eyes. "I will marry you." Their wedding took place just 6 months from the day they met, an extravagant beach ceremony in the Maldives. White roses lined the aisle. A group of orphans from one of Zara's foundations sang a heartfelt serenade in her honor. Julian recited vows that seemed plucked straight from a poet's diary, promising a life of unity, compassion, and shared dreams. Nia stood by as the maid of honor, more optimistic than ever. Mama Tola watched from the front row, dabbing tears with the edge of her colorful headscarf. The ceremony culminated in a celebration that carried on into the night, with fireworks reflecting on the dark waters. Yet, in a hidden corner of her mind, Zara couldn't shake a tiny pang of unease. It whispered that everything was happening too fast. But she silenced it, reminding herself that life was short and happiness sometimes arrives unexpectedly. Married life began with an opulent glow. The newlyweds enjoyed a month-long honeymoon across Asia's most picturesque beaches, from the turquoise waters of the Maldives to the secluded coves of the Philippines. Zara posted occasional photos on social media, showcasing their visits to local marine conservation projects, philanthropic events, and cultural festivals. Fans and business partners applauded her dedication to work even on her honeymoon. When they finally returned to Lagos, Julian moved into Zara's sprawling mansion, a place filled with modern art, plush furnishings, and personal mementos from her travels. Mama Tola was there to greet them at the door, wearing a wide smile, though her eyes reflected a cautious warmth. "Welcome home, Mr. Blake," she said, bowing her head respectfully. Julian placed a gentle hand on Mama Tola's shoulder. "Just call me Julian, please." The gesture was friendly, but Mama Tola remained reserved, her instincts on high alert. Over the next few weeks, Zara was pleased to see how smoothly Julian settled into her daily life. He even joined her on philanthropic visits, shaking hands with local community leaders and forging valuable connections. One afternoon, they visited a marine tech startup that Okoye Innovations was funding. Zara showed Julian the prototypes for a new machine designed to sift plastic from ocean water. "This is the kind of technology that will revolutionize cleanup efforts," Zara enthused. "It can filter out microplastics without harming marine life." Julian nodded, his interest genuine, or so it seemed. "Brilliant. I can't wait to see it commercialized. It'll position Okoye Innovations at the forefront of environmental technology." As he spoke, Zara felt a surge of pride that her husband was so supportive of her life's work. Yet, behind the scenes, he was subtly shifting the balance of power. He began asking for more involvement in her businesses, offering management expertise, and requesting to meet her financial team. At first, Zara hesitated. She was used to having full control of her family's empire, but she reasoned that marriage meant partnership, and Julian was her partner now. She introduced him to key financial assets, from local bank accounts to international holdings. Nia, ever the vigilant lawyer, noticed the shift. Zara, are you certain you want to give him that level of access? She asked during one of their private meetings. We're married, Zara replied, shrugging. I trust him. Nia's expression reflected caution. Trust is wonderful, but these are major assets. Perhaps we should proceed slowly, ensuring all legal angles are secured. Zara nodded, but some part of her was tired of everyone's skepticism. She wanted to be seen as more than a guarded heiress who suspected everyone. Couldn't she, for once, allow herself the joys of love without second-guessing? Late one night, she and Julian sat by the garden, the moon illuminating the shimmering pool. They spoke softly about their dreams for the future. She told him about her dream to build a chain of eco-friendly hotels that would fund community conservation projects. He told her about wanting to create a platform for promising African startups. The conversation flowed like a comforting lullaby. But as the moon dipped below the horizon, the corners of Julian's eyes caught shadows that only a keen observer would see. Shifting shadows, reflecting an ambition that soared beyond mere partnership. He was stepping carefully, laying foundations for something darker. Zara, lost in the tenderness of new marriage, had no inkling of the betrayal that lurked beneath that charming exterior. Zara awoke to the sound of gentle waves lapping against the rocky shore. She stretched, inhaling the crisp ocean air wafting through the open balcony doors. Julian had arranged a surprise trip to a private island near the Seychelles to celebrate their first wedding anniversary. The journey there had been a whirlwind. They boarded a private jet, then transferred to a speedboat that whisked them to a luxurious yacht anchored in crystal blue waters. As Zara stepped out onto the sun-drenched deck, she found Julian leaning against the railing, scanning the horizon. "Good morning, husband," she said with a wide smile, resting her head on his shoulder. "Good morning, beautiful," he murmured, wrapping an arm around her waist. The yacht's crew had prepared an indulgent breakfast spread, tropical fruits, freshly baked pastries, and steaming coffee. Zara's heart soared with happiness as she reflected on the year gone by. Yes, she had noticed Julian's increasing interest in her company's financial dealings, but she told herself it was normal. They were building a future together, after all. During breakfast, Julian gave a casual nod to the yacht's captain. "We're heading to an even more secluded spot today," he told Zara. "I want this to be a trip you'll never forget." Zara blushed, excitement bubbling within her. "You're spoiling me, you know." "You deserve every bit of it," Julian replied, raising his coffee cup. "To us." They spent the day snorkeling and exploring hidden coves, marveling at vibrant corals and tropical fish. Zara took mental notes. She was always thinking of new conservation initiatives. Julian listened attentively, occasionally nodding. He even took pictures of her swimming, capturing her wide grin underwater. She felt lucky beyond measure. That evening, after a lavish seafood dinner, Julian led her to the yacht's upper deck. The sky glowed with stars, and a gentle wind caressed their faces. "Dance with me," he whispered, taking her hand. No music played, but Zara leaned against him, content to sway under the celestial canopy. She closed her eyes, heart beating in rhythmic unison with the waves. She felt so secure in his arms that she almost believed every fairy tale she'd ever read. Reality felt as fragile as the shimmering reflection of the moon on the ocean's surface. She had no idea that, soon, these starlit moments would become harrowing memories. Much later, as she lay in bed, she dreamed of the ocean's depths. In her dream, she was falling through dark water, reaching out for something, someone. She woke with a start, breath ragged, feeling inexplicably anxious. Glancing to her side, she found Julian's space empty, the sheets cold. She got up, peering into the corridor. A faint light seeped out from the yacht's small office. She padded over in bare feet and found Julian reading through documents, her company's documents. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked, voice soft. He turned, eyes widening for a fraction of a second. Then he smiled. "Just checking on some investments. Sorry if I woke you." Zara frowned slightly but nodded. "Come back to bed soon." As she walked away, a chill brushed her spine. She paused, glancing over her shoulder, but Julian had already turned back to the computer. The moment felt loaded with invisible tension. Yet she told herself it was just business. The empire was vast, Maybe he wanted to prove he could handle it on her behalf. She returned to bed, sinking into the cushions. But her dreams kept circling back to the image of dark water and a sinking hand. The following day brought a sudden change in weather. The once clear sky turned gray, heavy clouds gathering on the horizon. The yacht's captain advised caution, suggesting they anchor in a safer spot. But Julian insisted on continuing out to a more remote area, claiming he wanted to catch a glimpse of untouched reefs that had been rumored to exist in these waters. Zara stood on the deck, scanning the looming clouds. A sense of foreboding curled in her stomach, though she tried to shake it off. She trusted Julian. They had an experienced crew. It would be fine, just a bit of rough weather, she told herself. By late afternoon, the sea grew restless, waves slamming against the yacht's hull. The captain recommended turning back, but Julian once again insisted on pressing forward, saying they would seek shelter at a hidden cove. Zara looked at her husband, confusion etched across her face. Why was he so determined to venture into the storm? Then came the first crack of thunder, followed by sheets of rain. The horizon disappeared behind a wall of water. Wind howled, making the yacht's deck treacherously slippery. Zara clutched the railing, heart pounding. "Julian!" she yelled above the gusts. "We have to go inside. This storm is too strong." He appeared from around the corner, drenched but strangely calm. His expression was unreadable. "Trust me," he said, voice raised. "We'll be safe soon. Just hold on." She tried to follow him, but the yacht lurched violently, sending her stumbling. Julian grabbed her arm, steadying her. For a brief moment, his grip felt reassuring. But then, something in his gaze shifted. Zara caught a glimpse of raw intent, cold and precise. Without warning, his other hand slammed into her chest, shoving her backward. Her eyes widened, mouth forming a silent scream as she lost her balance. The world tilted, and she felt her body hurtle over the railing. Rain and wind assaulted her senses as she plunged headfirst into the raging sea. She surfaced amid churning waves, salt water stinging her eyes. Lightning illuminated the yacht's deck briefly. Through the sheets of rain, she saw Julian standing at the railing, staring down at her. Then the yacht's engines roared, and it began to pull away. "Julian!" she screamed, terror clawing at her throat. "Help me!" But the yacht sped off, its lights disappearing into the storm. Disbelief slammed into her with the same force as the waves. Her husband had just pushed her into the ocean, in the middle of a raging storm. She fought to keep her head above water, waves towering and crashing. Each time she surfaced, she swallowed more seawater. Her limbs felt like lead. Rain pelted her face, and thunder boomed in her ears. She had always loved the ocean, but now it became a monstrous force seeking to drag her into its depths. Struggling for oxygen, she tried to recall her childhood swimming lessons. "Relax your limbs, conserve your energy," her father had taught her. But fear gripped her heart, and adrenaline coursed through her body. She kicked with all her might, fighting to stay afloat amid the swirling chaos. Minutes turned into what felt like hours. Her thoughts blurred, mind reeling with a single horrifying realization. Julian had wanted her dead. He had orchestrated this entire trip. The romantic getaway, the surprise route, the storm, everything had been part of his deadly plan. She could almost see the headlines: "Billionaire heiress lost at sea, presumed drowned." Her limbs began to numb. Each breath became a monumental struggle. The storm battered her mercilessly, and she felt her strength draining away. Her last coherent thought before darkness overcame her was of her parents, wishing she could somehow let them know she fought until the very end. Then the blackness swallowed her. Zara awoke to the faint smell of fish and the sensation of rough hands lifting her from the wet sand. Her entire body felt bruised, and salt crusted her lashes and lips. She tried to speak, but only a raspy croak escaped her throat. "Easy, easy," someone said in a language she recognized faintly as a local Seychellois Creole. She caught snatches of English, as well. A group of fishermen hovered around her, their faces etched with concern. They carried her carefully into a modest fishing hut perched near the island shore. The walls were made of driftwood and corrugated metal, hammered into place by years of storms. She felt a damp cloth pressed to her forehead, a small flame casting flickering shadows. She drifted in and out of consciousness, haunted by nightmares of drowning, of Julian's cold stare as he abandoned her. When she finally regained enough strength to speak, her voice was a shaky whisper. "Where am I?" she asked, her eyes flickering to one of the fishermen. "Somewhere east of Praslin," the man replied gently. "A storm tossed you here. We found you half dead on the shore." Zara tried to piece together her memories. She remembered the lightning, the mountainous waves, and Julian's betrayal. Her heart pounded with dread. She was lost, miles from mainland civilization, and her husband was likely celebrating his success in eliminating her. The fisherman brought her water and a thin broth. Zara sipped it gratefully, each swallow feeling like fire sliding down her parched throat. One older fisherman, with a scar across his cheek, spoke English haltingly. He explained that they frequented this remote region to catch fish away from commercial trawlers. They rarely encountered travelers, so finding her alive was almost miraculous. As her strength returned, Zara thanked them and tried to convey her identity. "I'm Zara Okoye. My family, my business." But her tongue felt heavy. She wasn't even sure how to explain the magnitude of her situation. These humble fishermen might not know her name, or even believe her story. Yet they remained kind, nursing her back to stability over the next couple of days. One fisherman lent her a phone with minimal battery, but the signal was too weak in this remote location. She tried calling Nia, Mama Tola, anyone, no luck. The phone cut out, the battery dying mid-dial. A wave of helplessness crashed over her. She was alive, yes, but completely stranded. At night, lying on a makeshift cot, she stared through the shack's open window at the stars. She thought of the empire she had left behind, her staff, her foundations, her philanthropic projects. How quickly it might all slip into Julian's grasp. Could he have already declared her dead? On the third day, the fishermen announced they needed to return to the main island to sell their catch. "We'll take you," the elder with a scar said, "so you can see a doctor, maybe find your people." Zara's eyes glimmered with hope. She insisted on going that very morning, her injuries still raw but overshadowed by the desperate need to survive, and to reclaim her life. They carried her onto a small fishing boat, starting the engine with a sputtering roar. The ocean shimmered under a clear sky, deceptively tranquil compared to the violent storm that had almost ended her life. Zara clutched the boat's edge, steeling herself for the journey. She couldn't afford to let fear paralyze her now. The fisherman's boat chugged slowly toward an archipelago of islets dotted with palm trees and hidden coves. Upon docking at a modest pier, Zara found herself in a tiny fishing village nestled between dense jungle foliage and the water's edge. The huts were simple, some propped on stilts to avoid flooding. Children with curious eyes peered at her from behind baskets of fruit. The entire place smelled of smoked fish, salt, and damp earth. Her rescuers guided her up a narrow path to a small, humble clinic. The local nurse, a slender woman in her 50s, tended to Zara's bruises and scrapes. She clicked her tongue in sympathy. "You're lucky to be alive," she said in French-accented English. "But these waters can hide as many miracles as they do tragedies." The fishermen explained that they had to leave soon to attend to their nets. Zara thanked them profusely, tears welling in her eyes. They departed with nods and quiet farewells, leaving her alone with the nurse. After patching her up, the nurse gestured to a back room with a single cot. "You can rest here until you're stronger. After that, you'll need to figure out where to go." Zara's mind churned with questions. She yearned to scream her identity from the rooftops. But who would believe she was the billionaire heiress Zara Okoye? And if they did, how quickly might word reach Julian? If he had the resources, and he surely did, he could intercept her. Worse, she had no idea how widespread her death had been reported. For all she knew, an obituary had already circulated. That evening, as she lay on the cot, an elderly woman entered. She was dressed in colorful, flowy robes that draped around her petite frame, and she carried a small woven basket of herbs. She introduced herself as Mama Tola. The familiar Yoruba accent of Nigeria spilled from her lips, shocking Zara into sitting upright. But how could Mama Tola be here? At the sight of Zara's confusion, the woman smiled kindly. Not your Mama Tola, child. But that's what people call me around these parts because I take care of whoever needs help. My real name's Tola Alyamide, from Ogun State. I've lived on these islands for 20 years. Zara blinked back tears. The presence of someone from her homeland was comforting beyond measure, almost a divine coincidence. Mama Tola, this Mama Tola, worked as a traveling healer. She had overheard talk of a mysterious woman found unconscious in the storm and offered her help. Over the next few days, Zara was too weak to leave the village, so she grew closer to Mama Tola. She confessed bits and pieces, that she had been thrown overboard, that the husband she loved had tried to kill her. She stopped short of revealing her billionaire status. Partly out of fear, partly out of an unexplainable need to hide her identity until she was strong enough to confront Julian. Mama Tola listened intently, her eyes brimming with empathy. Men who chase fortune above love are often led astray, she said softly. But you, my child, you have a mighty spirit. You survived. That means the ancestors have more for you to do in this world. Together, they concocted herbal remedies to strengthen Zara's body. Mama Tola massaged Zara's bruised ribs with aromatic oils and made sure she ate hearty meals, often fish soup and tropical fruits. Each day, Zara felt her strength return. Her determination grew in tandem with her physical recovery. One afternoon, while Zara was practicing a gentle walk around the clinic, she asked Mama Tola, "How can I repay your kindness?" Mama Tola chuckled, stirring a pot of simmering herbs. "I ask for nothing but that you heal, and that you find justice. You have a story to finish, child." Zara stared at the horizon, the ocean shimmering under the midday sun. The memories of the push, the storm, and Julian's cold eyes replayed in her mind like a relentless nightmare. She was still that woman with no name in this village, but inside her, the voice of Zara Okoye roared to reclaim what had been stolen. Meanwhile, halfway across the world, Julian Blake stood in front of a podium draped with white lilies, his eyes downcast in a performative show of grief. A sizable crowd had gathered in Lagos to honor the memory of Zara Okoye, the heiress presumed drowned at sea. Cameras snapped incessantly, capturing Julian's sorrowful expression. "It is with a heavy heart that I announce the loss of my beloved wife Zara," he said, his voice trembling convincingly. "She was swept away by a sudden storm. The rescue teams tried their best, but she never returned." In the front row sat Nia Bello, tears staining her cheeks. She clutched the memorial pamphlet bearing Zara's photograph. Beside her was Mama Tola, Zara's true nanny, her aged face etched in sadness, hands trembling in prayer. Friends, extended family, and colleagues were all there, mourning the shocking news. After the solemn ceremony concluded, the crowd dispersed in hushed whispers. Nia approached Julian, eyes red from crying. "You were with her. Are you sure there's no chance she survived?" she asked, voice quivering. Julian laid a comforting hand on Nia's shoulder, a picture of false empathy. "If there was a chance, the Coast Guard would have found her. The storm was too violent." He paused, swallowing hard. "I'm so sorry." Mama Tola glared at him, unspoken suspicion dancing in her eyes. She had known Zara since infancy and found it strange that such a strong swimmer would vanish so easily. Yet she had no tangible evidence to prove anything else. Still, her instincts prickled with unease. In the following days, Julian moved swiftly, contacting Okoye Innovations board members, bankers, and lawyers. Through a carefully orchestrated legal strategy, and Zara's own initial trust in him, he began transferring assets into his name. He claimed it was temporary, a step needed to maintain the empire's stability until Zara was officially declared deceased or found alive. Nia, already suffering emotionally, found herself confronted with reams of paperwork. She was still the company's legal counsel, after all. Her suspicion grew when she noticed how quickly Julian introduced new signatures and directives for major accounts, including an offshore trust fund. But every time she questioned it, Julian brandished a legal memo that seemed to have Zara's signature. His explanations were smooth, laced with plausible reasons. He insisted these were steps Zara had already approved to protect the empire should anything happen to her. Alone in her office one afternoon, Nia studied a set of these documents, eyebrows knitting together. Something felt off. The signature looked like Zara's, but the flourish was slightly different. She recalled Zara's repeated emphasis on philanthropic goals, yet these documents funneled money into more private ventures that had questionable transparency. When Nia tried to bring this up with Mama Tola, the older woman simply placed a hand over Nia's and whispered, "Keep your eyes open, child. Ask the ancestors for guidance." Meanwhile, the media eulogized Zara as a visionary lost too soon. Magazine covers featured her philanthropic achievements, while television specials showcased footage of her smiling on a yacht. And behind the scenes, Julian soaked up the sympathy and consolidated power. Little did he know that the one woman who could expose his treachery was recovering her strength on a remote island, kept alive by the very ocean he had weaponized against her. Back on the remote island, Zara was slowly regaining mobility. She could now walk short distances without assistance, and even help Mama Tola gather herbs from the nearby forest. The island's pace of life was slow: wake up at dawn, fish or gather food, share stories in the evening by lantern light. It was a far cry from her old high-powered existence in Lagos. Yet, every morning, Zara awoke with the urgent need to return home, to reveal the truth. She just didn't know where to begin. She had no money, no phone, and no clear path off this secluded stretch of land. One day, while preparing a medicinal poultice with Mama Tola, Zara felt a sudden flash in her mind. She saw the yacht, the storm, and Julian's piercing stare. It was more than a memory. It was like reliving the moment. She dropped the herbs, heart pounding. "What is it, child?" Mama Tola asked, concern rippling in her voice. Zara clutched the edge of the wooden table. "I saw it again," she whispered. "The moment he pushed me. It's so vivid now. Like it just happened." Mama Tola guided her to a chair, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Trauma sometimes hides itself until you're strong enough to face it," she said softly. Zara nodded, tears burning her eyes. "I need to stop him. He's probably claiming everything, maybe even saying I'm dead. But how do I get off this island?" Mama Tola tilted her head, considering. "A trading boat will come in a week or two to exchange supplies. They might take us to a bigger port. From there, we can find a way to contact your people." Relief mingled with impatience in Zara's chest. A week or two felt like an eternity when Julian could be siphoning off her fortune. But she had no choice. She was in no condition to swim for the mainland, and communications were spotty at best. That evening, while the sounds of the ocean lapped at the shore, Zara and Mama Tola sat by a small fire, nursing cups of herbal tea. The old woman's wise eyes glowed in the firelight. "Tell me about your life, Zara Okoye." Zara hesitated before sharing fragments. Her parents, their empire, her philanthropic work. She spoke about her dreams of revolutionizing ocean cleanup technologies and providing scholarships for African youth. She also mentioned Nia Bello, her best friend and lawyer, and Mama Tola, her real nanny back home, who had practically raised her. "And Julian?" Mama Tola asked gently. Zara's face darkened. "He was charming, sweet at first. I believed he truly loved me. It's my fault for not seeing the signs." "It's not your fault," Mama Tola said firmly. "People who betray trust are solely responsible for their deeds. Your heart was genuine." Zara nodded, eyes glistening with tears. "I hope there's still something left of my parents' empire to save. I can't let him destroy everything they built." Mama Tola touched Zara's cheek. "The ancestors protected you from death for a reason. You will reclaim what's yours." Zara inhaled deeply, letting resolve flood her veins. She refused to be a victim. She would return, not as a broken woman, but as a storm ready to reclaim everything stolen from her. Days stretched into a week, then two. The trading boat's arrival was delayed by rough weather. Zara's anxiety soared, yet she pressed on with daily exercises. She practiced rudimentary self-defense techniques with Mama Tola, whose agile skill surprised Zara. The old woman insisted that a spiritual warrior also needed a strong body. On the 15th day, the long-awaited trading boat finally docked at the makeshift pier. Its hull was battered, painted in fading turquoise. A wiry man wearing a straw hat stepped off, shouting greetings to the villagers. Mama Tola approached him, explaining that they needed transport to a larger port city. He studied Zara with skeptical eyes, but after some negotiation and a promise of future payment, he agreed. They set off at dawn the following day, the boat heaving in the gentle swells. During the voyage, Zara stayed mostly below deck, concealed in a corner. She didn't want to risk anyone who might recognize her prematurely reporting back to Julian. Her heart pounded with excitement and dread. Every minute brought her closer to facing the reality she had left behind. When they arrived at a busy port on the main Seychellois island, the air buzzed with commerce. Stalls sold fresh fish, tropical fruits, and handcrafted souvenirs. Tourists in shorts and sunglasses ambled around, snapping photos. "Stay close," Mama Tola whispered, leading Zara through the throng. "We'll find a quiet place to rest, then plan our next move." They secured a cramped room above a modest cafe. The owner, a middle-aged woman with a warm smile, was easily persuaded by Mama Tola's calm demeanor. Zara kept her head low, wearing a scarf to obscure her face. It had been weeks since the world presumed her dead, so perhaps she was safe, but caution was necessary. That evening, sitting on the rickety balcony overlooking the bustling street, Zara and Mama Tola discussed the strategy. They had very little money, which was mostly Mama Tola's meager savings. Zara needed to communicate with Nia or someone she trusted. "I need a phone and internet," Zara said, drumming her fingers on the wooden railing. Mama Tola nodded. "We'll go to a cyber cafe tomorrow. I know one run by a Nigerian man. He might help, discreetly." Zara exhaled in relief. "The sooner we do this, the sooner I can expose Julian's crimes." Before dawn, a shiver of doubt pierced Zara's determination. What if no one believed her? What if Julian had spun a story so convincing that her reappearance would be questioned, even by those closest to her? She wrapped her arms around herself, staring at the distant glow of the ocean. It felt like a lifetime ago that she was hosting philanthropic galas and traveling the world to advocate for marine conservation. Now, she was just another face in a crowd, desperate to reclaim her identity. But doubt could not be allowed to fester. She remembered her parents' faces, how they'd nurtured her passion for the sea. She thought of the employees depending on her leadership. And she pictured Mama Tola, her real nanny, waiting at home for her safe return. Steeling her resolve, she whispered into the darkness, "I'm coming back, Julian. And you're going to regret everything." Back in Lagos, Julian had organized a grand memorial service in Zara's honor, once again. This time, he chose a sprawling ballroom in one of the city's most prestigious hotels. The hall was adorned with towering floral arrangements and large portraits of Zara, each depicting her radiant smile. Streams of elegantly dressed attendees filtered in, exchanging subdued whispers. Julian, dressed in a sleek black suit, took to the stage with a solemn expression. A hush fell over the crowd as he spoke about Zara's unwavering dedication to ocean conservation, her philanthropic impact, and her beautiful heart. Cameras captured every moment, broadcasting the event across social media platforms. In the audience, Nia watched Julian with icy contempt. She had been busy investigating behind the scenes, determined to uncover any clue that might shed light on Zara's disappearance. Yet everything remained frustratingly inconclusive. Coast Guard records documented a massive storm in the region where Zara had vanished. Multiple search attempts had yielded no trace of her. Time was wearing on, and each passing day made it more plausible that she was gone for good, or so Julian wanted everyone to believe. Mama Tola, the real Mama Tola, stood beside Nia, her eyes flickering with suspicion. She leaned over and whispered, "Look at him. Not a tear in his eye." Nia nodded grimly. "He's either hiding his grief well or there's something else." When the memorial ended, Julian descended from the stage, playing the role of a gracious host. He greeted well-wishers, receiving embraces and condolences. But the moment he spotted Nia, his face tensed. He approached her with a carefully arranged mask of sorrow. "How are you holding up, Nia?" he asked softly. She forced a polite smile. "Trying my best." Zara was more than a friend. She was family. Julian nodded, placing a hand on Nia's shoulder. "I feel the same. My world is emptier without her." Mama Tola's lips thinned, but she remained silent, her gaze fixed on Julian like a hawk. "Listen," Julian continued, keeping his voice pitched low. "I know this is difficult, but there are some urgent matters concerning Okoye Innovations. We need to appoint a new figurehead. I'm not comfortable with the position being vacant." Nia's eyes flashed. "Zara's seat on the board can remain open for a time, Julian. There's no law demanding an immediate replacement. Unless you have another reason for rushing." He sighed theatrically. "I don't want her legacy to fall apart. Investors are getting antsy. They need reassurance." Nia clenched her jaw, but managed to nod. "Fine. But we do everything by the book." As Julian walked away to greet another group, Mama Tola whispered, "He's in a hurry. His pockets must be getting full quickly." Nia folded her arms. "Indeed. And I'm not going to let him loot the empire Zara built." In the corner of the ballroom stood Detective Kamari, a tall figure with sharp features. He wasn't in uniform, and no official reason had been provided for his presence. He observed Julian from a distance, something calculating in his eyes. Nia had confided her suspicions in him once, and Kamari, an old friend of the Okoye family, decided to keep an informal eye on the situation. His presence at the memorial was a subtle signal to Nia. "I'm still watching." From the stage, a soft violin began playing, marking the official end of the service. Guests started dispersing, leaving Julian alone to bask in the glow of sympathy. Little did he know, those who truly cared for Zara were steadily converging. Like puzzle pieces, they would soon align to reveal the truth hidden beneath his theatrical mourning. Late one evening, Nia sat in her home office, surrounded by piles of legal documents. The overhead light cast deep shadows, and her eyes strained from hours of reading fine print. She sipped lukewarm coffee, flipping through the pages of a contract that granted Julian access to several of Zara's offshore accounts. The swirl of legal jargon had nearly lulled her into a daze when a particular clause leaped out at her. It referenced a contingency directive that Zara was said to have signed just weeks before her disappearance. But the date seemed off. It coincided with a charity gala that Zara had attended with Nia in another country. There was no way Zara could have signed anything on that day. She was halfway across the continent. Heart-pounding, Nia rummaged through older files, scanning for Zara's typical signature and comparing it with the suspicious document. Although the signature resembled Zara's, Nia detected a slight discrepancy in the flourish of the Z. It was almost invisible to an untrained eye, but she had studied Zara's writing for years. Something was amiss. Setting the files aside, Nia reached for her phone to call Mama Tola. The older woman had also been present at that gala. After 3 rings, Mama Tola answered in a sleepy voice. "Hello, child." "Mama Tola, I'm sorry to wake you, but I found something important," Nia said hurriedly. She explained her discovery, voice trembling with excitement. "If Zara didn't sign this document, then it's a forgery. And if it's a forgery, we have proof that Julian is manipulating her finances illegally." Mama Tola's voice sharpened with urgency. "What does that mean, legally?" Nia exhaled, pinching the bridge of her nose. "It means I can challenge Julian's control in court. But I need solid evidence. Right now, this is suspicious but not conclusive enough to indict him. I need more documentation, maybe bank statements or a pattern of forgeries." They ended the call with a plan to meet at dawn. Nia then booted up her laptop, logging into the secure digital vault where most of Zara's files were stored. She typed in passwords, scoured financial statements, cross-referenced signatory dates with Zara's travel logs. With each new correlation, a pattern emerged. Julian had orchestrated multiple suspicious transactions, all rubber-stamped with Zara's forged signature. "This is it," Nia whispered to herself, eyes shining with determined fury. She was onto something big, and her loyalty to Zara fueled every keystroke. The world might believe Zara was dead, but Nia refused to let her friend's name be tarnished by deceit. In the corner of the screen, a small chat icon blinked. One of her associates had found more anomalies, highlighting nearly a dozen suspicious movements of funds into accounts managed solely by Julian. The sums were staggering. If Nia could prove the forgeries, she could freeze these assets and halt Julian's siphoning. As the sun began to glow over the horizon, Nia realized she hadn't slept. But she felt no fatigue, only adrenaline. She saved every file onto a secured thumb drive. A part of her knew she had to be cautious. Julian might have eyes everywhere. She resolved to confide only in Detective Kamari next. If Kamari's suspicions aligned with hers, they could launch a silent investigation without tipping Julian off. She pictured Zara's radiant smile and whispered to the empty room, "I won't fail you, my friend. We'll get him." In the cramped cyber cafe on the Seychelles Island, Zara typed feverishly. Beside her, Mama Tola kept watch, eyeing the small crowd of teenagers gaming on the computers. The hum of outdated machines formed a steady background buzz. Zara's heart hammered in her chest. She had just managed to log into a hidden email account she'd created back in her university days, a personal unregistered address that not even Julian knew about. She hoped Nia still had the correct contact details for her own private channel. Subject: I'm alive. From Zio Unknown. To Nia Bello, private. Nia. I don't have time to explain everything. I'm alive. Julian tried to kill me. I'm safe but stranded. Please, if you get this, do not let Julian know. Trust only Mama Tola, the one at the mansion, and Detective Kamari. I will contact you again soon. Zara. She read over the message, her fingers trembling. This was it, the moment she reached out to the world she'd been cut off from. With a final deep breath, she clicked send. A wave of relief and fear washed over her simultaneously. The email might never reach Nia. Even if it did, Nia could discard it as a cruel hoax. But Zara had to try. Her eyes darted to Mama Tola, who nodded encouragingly. Have faith. Your friend will know your heart. Zara also sent a brief message to her company's legal department, marked confidential, stating that the documents granting Julian control were unauthorized. She didn't include details, just a cryptic warning. She prayed someone would investigate. When Zara finished, her gaze snagged on the cafe's window. The reflection of a tall, unfamiliar man hovered behind her. For a split second, dread flared. Was he one of Julian's men? But he turned out to be just a tourist waiting for a computer. Still, Zara's nerves were on edge. Leaving the cafe, Zara and Mama Tola hurried through the bustling market, gathering supplies for the next leg of their journey. Zara purchased a cheap, disposable phone with limited minutes. She tucked it into her pocket like a lifeline. As night fell, they returned to the tiny rented room above the cafe. Zara's mind buzzed, replaying the risk they'd just taken. She couldn't stay on this island forever. Sooner or later, she had to confront Julian head-on. But she'd do it wisely, with evidence, allies, and a plan that would leave no room for his manipulations. In the stillness of the night, she opened the phone and dialed a number she remembered by heart. The line rang, then went to voicemail. Mama Tola, her voice caught as she spoke into the phone. My Mama Tola in Lagos. It's me, Zara. I don't know if you'll get this, but please, trust your instincts. I'm alive. Don't let him fool you. I love you. She ended the call, hugging the phone to her chest. Mama Tola watched from across the room, tears glistening in her ancient eyes. Your real nanny will hear your voice soon enough, she whispered. Courage, child. Zara lay down on the thin mattress, exhaustion sweeping over her. The weight of her message to Nia both comforted and terrified her. Tomorrow, the game would change if Nia believed her. If not, Zara would remain as she was, alone, fighting a hidden war against the man who had stolen her life. Detective Kamari sat in his dimly lit office, the smell of old coffee lingering in the air. He had just returned from a series of interviews with the yacht's crew members. Julian had paid them off handsomely to keep the official story consistent. Zara fell overboard in the storm, and rescue attempts were futile. Yet Kamari's gut told him there was more to the narrative. Moments later, his phone buzzed. A new message from Nia. Need to meet. Urgent. He grabbed his car keys, weaving through Lagos traffic to a discreet cafe near the police station. Nia was already there, seated in a corner booth with a thick file. She looked pale, dark circles under her eyes. Kamari slid into the seat across from her. "Tell me everything," he said without preamble. Nia inhaled deeply, then laid out her findings. The suspicious signatures, the questionable transaction dates, and the fact that Zara couldn't have signed those documents. She also mentioned a cryptic email from an unknown account claiming Zara was alive. Kamari's eyes widened. "An email? Did you trace it?" Nia shook her head. "It came from an unregistered address. But the details, there were certain words that only Zara would know. I can't prove it's her, but every instinct screams that it is." Kamari rubbed his temples. If Zara is alive, and Julian orchestrated her disappearance, then he's committing fraud on a massive scale. Possibly attempted murder. But we can't just accuse him without concrete proof. He's powerful, and the board might side with him if they believe she's dead. Nia flipped open the file, revealing the evidence she had compiled. "We start with these. We can also try to track the location of the email, though it might be difficult if they used a public network. But it's something." Kamari nodded, scanning the pages. "I'll do what I can to keep Julian unaware. We don't want him to panic and run. Meanwhile, you should keep collecting anything else you can find. We'll build a case brick by brick." Outside, thunder rumbled. A sudden downpour hammered the cafe's tin roof, creating a cacophony that drowned out their conversation from any curious ears. Nia leaned in closer. "Be careful, Kamari. Julian might not stop at anything to protect himself." He met her gaze, resolve firm in his eyes. "I serve justice, Nia. I owe that much to Zara and her family's legacy." They parted ways under the torrent of rain. Nia clutched the file to her chest, half expecting an unmarked car to come screeching around the corner. Paranoia gnawed at her. Julian had resources, money, lawyers, possibly even corrupt officers in his pocket. Still, she refused to be cowed. Later that night, Detective Kamari visited the forensics lab to discreetly inquire about verifying the signatures. The lab technician owed him a favor and agreed to run tests under the radar. Kamari also put a quiet watch on Julian's financial activities. If Zara's email claim was true, and she contacted them again, Kamari wanted to be ready. As the storm raged on outside, a faint spark of hope flickered for both Nia and Kamari. They might finally be pulling the right thread to unravel Julian's carefully woven tapestry of lies. Zara returned to the small room above the cafe after another day scouring local phone booths for any glimmer of progress. Communication remained sporadic, but she felt certain that her message to Nia would set wheels in motion. Her restless spirit couldn't stand idleness, so she spent evenings outlining a plan with Mama Tola. The two women sat at a makeshift table, a single flickering lamp illuminating their notes. Zara had scribbled down a broad strategy on scraps of paper. Step 1. Gather indisputable proof of Julian's fraud. Step 2. Expose him to the board of Okoye Innovations, the media, and law enforcement. Step 3. Reclaim her rightful position and hold him accountable. But how to execute these steps when half the world believed she was dead? Mama Tola studied Zara's outline, tapping a finger against her chin. "You'll need someone on the inside. Someone powerful enough to sway the board." Zara nodded. "That's what Nia is for, though she can't do it alone. The board might be too intimidated by Julian's schemes." Mama Tola's wise eyes flickered. "Then you need a financial heavyweight. An investor who truly admired your vision and was never swayed by Julian's charm." Zara's mind raced through a mental list of potential allies. Names surfaced, but only one stood out as particularly loyal to her cause. Duke Thompson, a quiet investor who had partnered with her on several philanthropic ventures before Julian came along. She recalled him praising her mission, emphasizing how passion and integrity were what drew him to invest in Okoye Innovations. "Yes, Duke Thompson," Zara breathed. "He has enough clout to influence other investors. And I trust him. He never tried to exploit my wealth." Mama Tola smiled, placing a comforting hand on Zara's arm. "Reach out to him, child. You'll need many hands to navigate this storm." Early the next morning, Zara used her disposable phone to call Duke's private office. Her heart hammered as it rang, half expecting the line to be disconnected. Finally, a crisp professional voice answered, "Duke Thompson's office, how may I help you?" Zara paused, swallowing. "May I speak with Duke Thompson?" "It's regarding Zara Okoye." There was a moment of silence, then the receptionist responded, "Mr. Thompson is unavailable right now. Can I take a message?" Zara's desperation soared. She had to be cautious. Tell him the woman he once called the soul of the sea is in need of help. She remembered that phrase from a dinner party Duke once attended. He'll understand. She ended the call, shaky with the realization of how risky this was. Julian might have eyes on Duke Thompson's communications, or maybe Duke had sided with Julian already. But she had to try every option. That evening, as they prepared a simple meal, Mama Tola turned on a battery-powered radio. Crackling news reports in multiple languages drifted in and out. Suddenly, a headline made Zara's heart lurch. Julian Blake, widower of the late billionaire heiress Zara Okoye, announced a major restructuring at Okoye Innovations today. Zara clutched the radio, listening intently. The reporter detailed how Julian, now acting as the interim majority shareholder, planned to launch his own brand under the company's umbrella, focusing on luxury cruise liners. The move aimed to revitalize the empire's public image, though critics claimed it abandoned Zara's philanthropic core. Rage and heartbreak intertwined in Zara's chest. This was exactly what she feared, Julian twisting her parents' legacy to line his pockets. She looked at Mama Tola, eyes brimming with tears of indignation. "He's not just stealing from me, he's dismantling everything I worked for," Zara whispered, voice quivering with fury. Mama Tola nodded solemnly, placing a gentle hand on Zara's shoulder. "Then we'll stop him," she said quietly. "We'll bring him down, piece by piece. You survived for this moment." Zara stared into the lamplight, that flicker of righteous fire blazing stronger. The master plan was underway, and there would be no turning back. Julian strode into the sleek, glass-walled boardroom of Okoye Innovations with a confident smile plastered on his face. He wore a tailored navy suit, and beneath his polished exterior, a surge of triumph coursed through him. Today, he intended to finalize the new brand launch, his brand, fueled by the staggering finances once belonging to Zara. Board members murmured greetings, and Julian flashed them a gracious nod. They had grown accustomed to his presence, many enthralled by his promises of lucrative returns. The seat at the head of the table, once occupied by Zara, now remained empty as a token gesture. But Julian harbored little intention of keeping it empty indefinitely. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, resting his hands on the smooth surface of the table. "I thank you for your patience during this difficult time. As you know, our beloved Zara left behind a monumental legacy. I believe it's our responsibility to evolve and adapt, ensuring her empire remains prosperous." A few members nodded enthusiastically, while others maintained guarded expressions. Nia sat near the end of the table, arms folded, her face betraying no emotion. Detective Kamari had advised her to keep Julian unsuspecting while they gathered more evidence. After outlining his grand vision for a fleet of luxurious cruise liners, a stark shift from Zara's ocean cleanup focus, Julian asked for a vote of confidence. As he expected, most hands rose in favor, hungry for potential profits. Nia's hand remained down. Julian's gaze flickered to her. "Nia, do you have something to add?" he asked, voice cool. She lifted her chin. "I don't believe this aligns with Zara's core mission. It's a disservice to everything she built and stood for." Julian exhaled, adopting a sympathetic tone. "I appreciate your concern, but we must think of the future. Perhaps you're still grieving, unable to see the bigger picture." Gritting her teeth, Nia chose to stay silent. She watched as the other board members signed off on the plan, effectively greenlighting Julian's project. He smiled, concluding the meeting with a triumphant nod. But as the members dispersed, he cornered Nia near the exit. "I understand your loyalty to Zara," he said quietly, "but I'd hate for misplaced sentiments to harm this company's future." Nia bit back a sharp retort. Instead, she offered a stiff smile. "I only want what's best for Okoye Innovations." With that, she left the boardroom, heart pounding. She hurried to her office, where she locked the door and called Detective Kamari. "It's worse than we thought," she said, explaining the vote. Kamari's voice was grim. "We need more leverage, something undeniable. Keep an eye on him. Any sign of shady deals, you alert me immediately." Unbeknownst to Julian, the private investigator Kamari had hired was already unearthing inconsistencies in the yacht's official logs. A deckhand who had been paid off decided to speak up after receiving an anonymous tip that the authorities were scrutinizing the case. He confessed that Julian had bribed them to remain silent about crucial details of Zara's final moments on the yacht. Slowly, the walls began to close in on Julian. A subtle unease gnawed at him, manifesting in abrupt mood swings and increased paranoia. He changed security protocols at the mansion, rarely traveling without a guard. But he continued to project composure to the public, moving forward with his grand restructuring. Little by little, his empire of deceit was shaking at its foundations, like a towering building with hairline cracks that threatened to send it all crashing down. A buzz of chatter filled the lobby of Okoye Innovations one morning as employees noticed something unusual. Duke Thompson, a reclusive yet influential investor with a significant stake in the company, had arrived unannounced. Tall, reserved, and impeccably dressed, Duke quietly made his way to the executive floor, accompanied by his small entourage. He offered polite smiles but revealed no intention behind his visit. Julian was mid-conversation with a marketing director when his assistant burst into the room. "Sir, Duke Thompson is here. He wants to meet immediately." Caught off guard, Julian dismissed the director and hastened to the executive conference room. There, he found Duke waiting, a briefcase by his side. "Good morning, Mr. Blake," Duke began, crossing his arms. "I assume you know why I'm here." Julian masked his surprise with a confident smile. "Duke, it's been a while. I assume you're here about the new brand launch." Duke's eyes narrowed. "In part. I'm here because my personal ethics demand I look deeper into these drastic changes. Zara Okoye was a friend. She valued ocean conservation. Yet, it appears you're diverting a chunk of the company's funds toward luxury ventures." Julian forced a laugh. "I understand your concerns, but we've cleared this with the board. Profits from the cruises can later fund conservation projects. It's a long-term strategy." Duke tilted his head, unconvinced. "I see. Well, I'm calling for an extraordinary board meeting to discuss a new proposal. I have some fresh insights." Despite his outward calm, Julian felt a flicker of unease. "Certainly," he managed. "I welcome your ideas." That afternoon, the board gathered in the grand meeting hall. Duke Thompson took the floor, presenting slides about a new initiative that echoed Zara's original philanthropic framework. The twist. The slides all bore the name Zara Okoye, as if she had contributed to them. Gasps rippled through the room. Nia caught Julian's eye. He looked rattled. Duke concluded his presentation with a bold statement. "I believe this is what Zara would have wanted. And to ensure her legacy remains intact, I propose reinstating Zara's seat at the table until such time as she's legally declared deceased. Failing that, we appoint an interim CEO aligned with Zara's mission." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. "I humbly offer myself as that caretaker, should the board agree." A stunned silence followed. Julian clenched his fists beneath the table. He'd never expected Duke to challenge him so openly. Clearing his throat, Julian forced a polite smile. "Duke, your respect for Zara's mission is admirable. But we've already taken steps to reorganize. Wouldn't your proposal derail progress?" Duke locked eyes with him. "I don't believe so. In fact, I think it will correct the course. We should put it to a vote." The board members exchanged uneasy glances. A wave of confusion and tension enveloped the room. Some saw an opportunity to restore the company's philanthropic reputation. Others worried about clashing with Julian's newly minted power. Nia, sensing the perfect moment, backed Duke's proposal. "I vote in favor," she said firmly. A handful of other members, who had previously benefited from Zara's philanthropic approach, also supported it. The remaining members mumbled reservations or requests for more data. Still, the motion gained enough traction to be taken seriously. "Very well," said the board chairman, trying to maintain neutrality. "We'll hold an official vote next week. Both parties can present additional evidence and arguments." As the meeting adjourned, Julian approached Duke. "A bold move," he said, attempting a mild tone. "I hope this doesn't spark unnecessary conflict." Duke met his gaze evenly. "I think the conflict already exists, Julian. I'm just bringing it into the open." With that, he turned and strode out, leaving Julian seething in the shadow of his fading confidence. For the first time, Julian's grip on the company felt tenuous, threatened by a force he didn't fully understand, one guided, perhaps, by Zara's invisible hand. 1 week later, the boardroom at Okoye Innovations was abuzz with anticipation. The specially convened meeting to discuss Duke Thompson's proposal was about to begin. Cameras from major financial media outlets lined the lobby, capturing images of shareholders and executives as they arrived. Julian took a seat at the head of the table, projecting calm authority. On the opposite side sat Duke Thompson, flanked by Nia Bello. The tension was palpable. The board chairman cleared his throat, beginning the session. "Today's meeting is to determine whether we appoint Duke Thompson as interim CEO in alignment with Zara Okoye's philanthropic legacy or continue under the current structure. Let's proceed with final arguments." Before Duke or Julian could speak, the boardroom doors swung open. A hush fell across the crowd as a figure, cloaked in a pale suit and a headscarf, entered. She moved with measured grace, her posture tall and determined. Gasps and murmurs echoed. Slowly, the woman removed her headscarf, revealing braided hair that framed a familiar face, a face once presumed dead. Zara Okoye stood there, alive and undeniable, her gaze fierce. Nia jumped to her feet, tears filling her eyes. Duke Thompson breathed a silent sigh of relief. Julian, stunned, half rose from his chair, his expression oscillating between disbelief and horror. Reporters and cameras jostled at the door, trying to glimpse the spectacle. The boardroom erupted in astonished cries. "She's alive? How is this possible? Ms. Okoye, can you tell us? Zara, what happened?" Zara raised a hand, demanding silence. The room quieted, all eyes on her. "Ladies and gentlemen of the board, my esteemed colleagues," she began, voice quivering with repressed emotion. "I stand before you today not as a ghost, but as Zara Okoye, the rightful owner and founder of this empire. Reports of my death were, as you can see, greatly exaggerated." Her gaze locked onto Julian, who appeared frozen. "Julian Blake, my husband," she said, her tone chillingly polite. "I believe you owe many people here an explanation. Specifically, how you came to assume control of my assets." Julian's throat bobbed. For a split second, he tried to regain composure. "Zara," he stammered, forcing a tremulous smile. "Is it really you? My God, I thought you were lost at sea. We all mourned you." Zara's expression hardened. "Mourned me while forging my signature on multiple documents? Or while transferring funds to private accounts and launching a brand that completely disregards my life's work?" The room buzzed with hushed conversation. Some board members stared at Julian in wide-eyed shock. Others wore expressions of triumph or relief. Nia stepped forward, brandishing a folder. "We have evidence that Julian falsified signatures and manipulated corporate records. Detective Kamari has verified testimonies from the Yacht's crew, revealing that Zara's fall overboard was no accident." Kamari, standing near the back, stepped forward to confirm. "As of this morning, an arrest warrant for Julian Blake has been issued. We can't force the matter just yet, given that we're still finalizing forensics, but we're close." Julian's face twisted with anger. He sprang to his feet. "You can't prove anything," he shouted, slamming a fist on the table. "Zara, please, whatever happened was an accident. You must believe me. I tried to save you." Zara exhaled, her voice resonating with quiet power. "I saw your face right before you pushed me. There was no accident, Julian. You left me to die." A strangled silence gripped the room. Two uniformed officers, alerted by Kamari, waited just outside. A swirl of camera flashes erupted as journalists documented every second of this extraordinary confrontation. Zara let her gaze roam over the stunned faces of the board members. "I'm reclaiming my seat as CEO with immediate effect," she announced. "And Duke Thompson will serve as my co-CEO, ensuring transparency moving forward." The chairman quickly nodded. "Yes, of course, Ms. Okoye. This board fully supports your return." Julian's eyes darted around, desperate for an escape. But there was none. Not with cameras and security blocking every exit. In that moment, he realized his meticulously crafted facade had just imploded live, for the entire corporate world to witness. As the boardroom erupted in chaos, board members chattering, reporters shouting questions, Zara motioned to Nia, who carefully inserted a flash drive into the room's main projector. The large screen flickered to life, silencing the crowd. Julian's face turned ashen as he realized what might be coming. "This footage," Nia began, voice steady, "was retrieved from a hidden GoPro camera that one of Zara's friends had given her before her trip. She had planned to record some ocean conservation footage on the yacht, unaware she was documenting her own attempted murder." The projector clicked on, showing shaky but clear video. Zara's and Julian's voices emerged above the roar of stormy winds. Zara stood on the yacht's deck, the storm intensifying around her. Julian approached, and though the angle was off to one side, the lens captured him shoving Zara overboard. Her scream cut through the footage as the camera tumbled, eventually going dark. Gasps of horror and disbelief echoed in the boardroom. Some viewers covered their mouths, while others glared at Julian in disgust. Detective Kamari turned toward Julian, who now trembled with rage and fear. "You lying," Julian hissed, but his words fell short. Zara's eyes flashed with mingled pain and triumph. "That's all the proof I need. You made me a victim, Julian, but I refused to die." Julian lunged across the table in a desperate bid to grab the flash drive. But the uniformed officers rushed forward, pinning him. Cameras clicked incessantly, capturing every second of the dramatic struggle. "You can't do this to me," Julian shrieked, his mask of suave composure utterly shattered. "Everything I did was for us, for the company." Detective Kamari stepped forward, his voice calm and decisive. "Julian Blake, you're under investigation for attempted murder, fraud, and embezzlement. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in court." Julian's face twisted with hatred as handcuffs snapped around his wrists. He thrashed momentarily, then seemed to collapse in on himself, knowing there was no escape from this damning evidence. Zara, her heart pounding, lifted her chin. Overwhelming emotion washed over her, anger, relief, sorrow for what was lost. But she stood tall, an unbreakable figure in the eyes of everyone present. The media broadcasted the unfolding scene in real time. By the end of the day, the footage had gone viral worldwide. Social media platforms exploded with outrage and support, praising Zara's resilience and condemning Julian's treachery. Even longtime skeptics were forced to admit that the once skeptical stories about her disappearance had been replaced by undeniable proof. Outside the boardroom windows, the Lego skyline glistened under the bright sun, a stark contrast to the darkness Julian had tried to unleash on Zara's life. With the evidence in hand and the public behind her, Zara Okoye had not only survived, she had reclaimed her empire and her dignity. Within hours, news outlets scrambled to cover the shocking development. The story exploded across headlines and social media. Heiress returns from dead, husband charged with attempted murder. Zara Okoye exposes yacht footage, Julian Blake arrested. Okoye Innovations, dead CEO stages epic comeback. Meanwhile, Julian's assets were promptly frozen by court order. Investigators seized his personal devices, combing through emails, offshore accounts, and suspicious transactions. Within days, more incriminating evidence surfaced. The public, once sympathetic to the grieving husband, turned on him viciously. Late-night talk shows ridiculed Julian, painting him as the worst gold digger in recent history. Memes flooded the internet, featuring screenshots of his stunned face in handcuffs. Influencers shared messages of support for Zara, praising her strength and endurance. Back at the Okoye mansion, Mama Tola wept with joy when Zara finally stepped through the grand doors. They embraced for a long moment, tears streaming down their cheeks. Mama Tola murmured prayers of gratitude under her breath, thanking the ancestors for protecting her child. Nia joined them, and the three women hugged, relief mingling with the sorrow of what they'd endured. "You did it, Zara," Nia whispered, voice thick with emotion. "You've come back stronger than ever." Zara managed a shaky smile. "I couldn't have done it without you, or Detective Kamari, or Duke Thompson." Just then, Duke appeared in the foyer, having followed Zara home at her invitation. He offered a respectful nod to Mama Tola, then turned to Zara. "The board is eager for your leadership. I've never seen them so unified." Zara's smile was soft. "You stood up for me before you even knew I was alive. I'll never forget that." "I always believed in your vision," Duke replied, sincerity coloring his words. Their conversation was interrupted by the sound of cameras clicking outside. A throng of reporters clamored by the mansion's gates, shouting questions and snapping photos. Zara had made a brief press statement upon her return, but the media's appetite for every detail of her story seemed insatiable. Slipping away from the windows, Zara and Duke retreated to her father's old study. It was a quiet sanctuary filled with leather-bound books and keepsakes from her parents' global travels. She ran her fingers over a framed photo of her family on a yacht, one of the last they'd taken before the fatal accident that claimed her parents. The irony of nearly dying on a yacht herself wasn't lost on her. "How do you feel?" Duke asked gently, taking a seat across from her. "Tired," she admitted, sinking into an armchair. "Angry at Julian, grateful to everyone who believed in me, and uncertain. There's so much to rebuild." Duke leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "You have time. The first step is ensuring Julian faces the full force of the law. Once that's done, we can start rebuilding Okoye Innovations the way you want." Zara's eyes flickered with determination. "I want new scholarships, more advanced research labs, expanded ocean cleanup initiatives. Everything I planned before Julian tried to sabotage me." Duke smiled. "You'll have it. The board is behind you, and the public is rallying to your side. Shareholders will see the wisdom in investing in your philanthropic approach now that the brand is under a global spotlight." They talked long into the night, occasionally interrupted by Mama Tola offering tea or Nia popping in with updates. And with each hour that passed, the world beyond the gates hummed with an intense, almost reverent fascination for the heiress who survived a ruthless betrayal. A few months later, the case against Julian Blake went to trial. Billed by the press as the trial of the century, it garnered international attention. News vans lined the streets outside the High Court in Lagos, and crowds gathered daily hoping to catch a glimpse of Zara Okoye entering or exiting the courthouse. Zara arrived each day with quiet dignity, dressed in modest, professional attire. She avoided the bombastic statements and tabloid sensationalism swirling around her. Her sole focus was testifying truthfully, determined to see justice served. The prosecutor presented a damning array of evidence: financial records, forged signatures, accounts from the bribed yacht crew, and, most incriminatingly, the GoPro footage of Julian shoving Zara overboard. The courtroom often fell silent when the video played, the judge and jury visibly shaken by its undeniable clarity. On the defense side, Julian's lawyers attempted to spin a tale of marital strife and unfortunate accidents. They argued the video was out of context, claiming it showed a couple struggling against the storm. Julian himself took the stand, tearfully proclaiming his love for Zara and stating he never intended to harm her. Zara watched from the plaintiff's bench, her jaw clenched. Each time Julian called her "my beloved wife," she felt a surge of anger. She forced herself to remain calm, trusting the evidence over emotional outbursts. On the final day, Zara took the stand. The gallery fell hushed, every eye riveted on her. She spoke with measured calm, recounting the details of the anniversary trip, the storm, and the moment Julian pushed her. She described waking up in a remote fishing village, fighting for survival, and eventually returning to find her assets under his control. The defense lawyer tried to corner her with invasive questions. Had she been drinking? Could her memory have been faulty? Did she fabricate parts of the event to blame Julian for a tragic accident? But each line of questioning faltered against her clear recollection and the supporting forensic evidence. When her testimony concluded, the courtroom was so silent one could hear the faint hum of the air conditioning. Zara stepped down, feeling both exhausted and strangely liberated. She had faced the man who betrayed her in a court of law, and she had told the world the truth. The jury deliberated for 2 days, tension gripping the public. When the verdict finally arrived, reporters scrambled to broadcast it live. The judge asked Julian to rise. In the matter of attempted murder, fraud, and embezzlement, we find the defendant, Julian Blake, guilty on all charges. A loud murmur spread throughout the courtroom. Julian's face twisted in horror, then he collapsed into his seat, hands trembling. The judge went on to detail sentencing guidelines, indicating Julian would spend many years behind bars, with substantial financial penalties. Zara closed her eyes, relief washing over her. Tears slipped down her cheeks, a mixture of triumph and sorrow. No amount of punishment would erase the betrayal, but she had regained her future, and that of her parents' empire. As she exited the courthouse, cameras swarmed, shouting for comments. Zara paused only briefly, issuing a concise statement. "I thank the judicial system for upholding justice. I hope my experience can inspire others to remain vigilant, trust their instincts, and fight for what's right." Then she climbed into the waiting car, Duke and Nia at her side, knowing she had crossed the final threshold of a dark chapter into the light of a new beginning. With Julian's conviction secured, Zara wasted no time in reasserting her leadership at Okoye Innovations. She held a major press conference in the building's atrium, broadcasting live to international markets. Flanked by Duke Thompson, Mama Tola, and Nia Bello, she announced sweeping reforms. 1. Full audit. Zara commissioned an external audit of all company finances to ensure transparency and uncover any lingering irregularities. 2. Philanthropic renewal. She vowed to redirect profits from future ventures into expanded ocean cleanup projects, renewable energy solutions for coastal communities, and scholarships for women in tech and marine science. 3. Restructured leadership. Zara and Duke would serve as co-CEOs, balancing innovation with ethical governance. Investors, initially jittery, soon rallied behind Zara's vision. Public sentiment was overwhelmingly supportive, with consumers across Africa and beyond celebrating her revival. Contracts flooded in from partners eager to associate with the newly redeemed brand. One morning, as Zara strolled through the bustling innovation lab, where new prototypes were being developed to sift microplastics from ocean water, she couldn't help but smile. The once tense atmosphere had lightened. Scientists and engineers, energized by her leadership, worked with renewed passion. Nia caught up to her, brandishing a folder. "We just got word that an international research consortium wants to collaborate on developing solar-powered ocean cleaners," she said, eyes shining. Zara nodded. "That's great news. Let's set up a meeting. We'll use the fund earmarked for sustainability to see this through." On another floor, Zara met with marketing teams, carefully designing campaigns that highlighted the company's philanthropic backbone. Gone were the flashy plans for luxury cruise liners. In their place stood tangible, community-driven projects. Later that day, Zara found a moment of solitude in her office, formerly her father's, then hers, then briefly Julian's. She touched the desk surface, remembering her father's stern but loving guidance. A gentle knock broke her reverie. It was Duke. "They're waiting for us upstairs for the product demo," he said. Then, noticing her reflective mood, he added, "Everything okay?" Zara offered a faint smile. "Yes, just thinking about what my parents would say if they could see this place now." Duke stepped closer, meeting her gaze. "They'd be proud of you. You saved their life's work." A wave of gratitude filled her. "Thank you," she said softly, "for believing in me when I was gone. For standing by me now." Duke hesitated, as if weighing his next words. "Zara, you're more than a business partner. I hope you know that. But I also understand you've been through an ordeal. I don't want to rush anything." Her cheeks warmed. The memory of nearly dying, of heartbreak and betrayal, made her cautious. But deep down, she felt a gentle tug, an invitation to trust again, at her own pace. "I appreciate that," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "Let's focus on building this empire first. The rest, we'll see." Duke inclined his head, a respectful agreement passing unspoken between them. Together, they left the office to attend the product demo, stepping into a future that Zara had painstakingly reclaimed from the jaws of betrayal. Weeks turned into months, and Zara's reputation soared higher than ever. Invitations poured in for keynote speeches at global summits on sustainability, philanthropic conferences, and women's empowerment forums. She juggled them with the demands of running Okoye Innovations, coordinating with Duke, finalizing major deals, and expanding her scholarships across Africa and beyond. During a trip to London for an environmental technology expo, Zara and Duke ended up having a rare evening off. The city lights shimmered across the River Thames as they took a quiet stroll along the embankment. Tourists milled around, snapping photos of Big Ben, but Zara felt oddly at peace despite the crowds. "So, the product demonstrations went well," Duke said, arms folded against the chilly breeze. "4 major investors are ready to commit to the next stage of our ocean cleanup initiative." Zara nodded, a content smile on her lips. "They see the potential. And we're giving them not just profits, but a chance to be part of something transformative." They paused at a railing overlooking the water. For a moment, they watched the river's current, each lost in thought. Finally, Duke turned to her. "You've accomplished so much in such a short time," he said softly. "Not just rebuilding Okoye Innovations, but redefining what success means in this industry." His tone was warm, his gaze lingering on her. Zara felt her heart flutter. The last time someone looked at her with genuine admiration, it had been Julian, and that ended in betrayal. But Duke was different. She sensed no hidden agenda in his eyes. She took a step back, inhaling the crisp night air. "I won't lie, Duke. After everything I went through, the idea of letting someone in again, it scares me." He reached out, gently placing a hand on her shoulder. "I understand. I'm not asking you for any promises. I just want you to know I'm here, no expectations, no strings." They stood there in comfortable silence for a while, the city's hustle a distant hum. Then Zara spoke, her voice tremulous yet resolute. "I'm not ready for anything beyond friendship and partnership. But I also don't want to push you away. It's just, my priority is ensuring my parents' legacy thrives, that no one can ever hijack it again." Duke nodded, a light smile curving his lips. "I respect that. I admire you even more for knowing what you want and need. I'll be right by your side, as a friend, a colleague, and if the time is ever right, something more." For the first time since her harrowing ordeal, Zara felt a genuine sense of hope in the realm of personal connections. She leaned her head on Duke's shoulder for just a brief moment, savoring the quiet comfort. The glimmer of the city lights on the water reminded her of possibility, of moving forward without losing herself in fear. As they walked back to their hotel, Zara's phone pinged with a news alert. She glanced at the headline, "Julian Blake appeals conviction, no new evidence presented." She slid the phone into her pocket, heart steady. Julian's shadow no longer terrified her. She had faced death and betrayal, only to emerge stronger. Now, she navigated love on her own terms, unhurried and unpressured. Back in Lagos, the city bustled with excitement over the grand unveiling of Okoye Innovations' newly expanded headquarters, a towering structure outfitted with solar panels, vertical gardens, and a futuristic water recycling system. Dignitaries and journalists poured in from around the world, eager to witness the cutting-edge facility symbolizing Africa's leadership in green technology. Zara stood on a temporary stage erected in front of the building. Flanked by Duke, Nia, Mama Tola, and a crowd of scholarship recipients, she addressed the gathered audience. The sun glistened off the polished glass facade behind her, a testament to the bright future she had painstakingly secured. "I stand here today," she began, voice resonating with passion, "not just as a business leader, but as a survivor, someone who has walked through the darkest storms and emerged more committed than ever to a cause larger than myself. My parents taught me that wealth is meaningless if it doesn't uplift others, preserve our environment, and push humanity forward." Warm applause rippled through the crowd. She smiled, thinking of her father's guiding hands on a boat's wheel, her mother's gentle reminders to protect the ocean at all costs. This building and the people within it represent a promise to harness technology for the good of the planet, to invest in education for the leaders of tomorrow, and to stand as a beacon of hope for every African child who dreams of a better, cleaner world. Reporters snapped photos, capturing the glow in Zara's eyes. In the front row, Mama Tola wiped away tears, beaming proudly. Duke watched with a knowing smile, deeply moved by Zara's poise. Nia gave a small fist pump in the air, a grin plastered on her face. A wave of jubilation filled the air as Zara cut the ceremonial ribbon. The new facility's doors slid open, revealing an atrium filled with interactive displays on marine conservation, sustainable tech, and philanthropic achievements. Visitors marveled at prototypes for advanced ocean filters and solar-powered equipment, each station manned by eager scientists ready to explain their breakthroughs. In the weeks that followed, the media dubbed Zara the Ocean Queen, a moniker that captured both her philanthropic mission and her regal, unbreakable spirit. She initially laughed it off, but as the name spread, she embraced it, wearing it as a sign of the resilience and hope she aimed to inspire. True to her promise, Zara channeled significant profits into new women's empowerment initiatives. In partnership with tech companies across Africa, she launched coding camps, maritime engineering scholarships, and incubators for female-led startups. Her social media lit up with stories of young women from rural communities discovering their potential, forging their own success paths. As the empire soared, Zara found moments of peace in the small things: an early morning walk by the beach, a heartfelt conversation with Mama Tola over steaming tea, or a quiet dinner with Nia and Duke discussing philanthropic projects. She no longer felt the gaping loneliness that once haunted her. Though romantic love remained a cautious territory, her heart felt full with friendship, purpose, and the unwavering support of those who believed in her vision. With every new initiative, every scholarship awarded, and every eco-innovation launched, Zara Okoye honored the memory of her parents and her own personal fight against betrayal. She had become a global icon not merely for her wealth, but for her unyielding devotion to the oceans that nearly claimed her life, and ultimately sustained her resolve. Standing on a balcony of the new headquarters one breezy afternoon, she gazed out at the vast Atlantic Ocean. Seagulls circled overhead, the sun gilding the waves in shimmering gold. Zara closed her eyes, inhaling deeply, feeling the salty wind on her face. This was her domain, her life's calling, to guard the sea, to uplift people, and to lead with empathy and strength. She was, and always would be, the Ocean Queen rising from the depths of betrayal to claim her throne. Proof that resilience, integrity, and love could transform even the darkest trials into a brighter future for all. I'm glad you made it to the end. I hope you enjoyed the story. Please go ahead and generously hit that like button and subscribe for more captivating tales like this. We'd love to hear from you. What lessons have you learned from this story? Share your thoughts in the comments below. See you in the next story.